If you go to a party, you go camping on a road trip, you bring that iPod Classic or an iPhone or whatever it may be, and you got a gigantic catalog at your disposal. Hit shuffle and you're ready to roll.
And that's using the technology, I think, to its absolute intended purpose.
Yeah.
I could never in a million years afford to buy all of that stuff on CD or vinyl, but I could stream it for $10 a month, unlimited.
And the stuff you really do like, that really strikes you, do you find yourself more inclined to
go buy it?
Absolutely. Yeah, I want to.
It's a commercial. They're commercials. So
Totally. Just like music videos were commercials and singles were commercials. Fortunately, well, at least a lot of the artists that I listen to have realized that if they make something that is a little special somehow, as far as like, a limited edition package of something, or a vinyl that's like a colored vinyl, or this one includes like some special artwork or a book that talks about something, like I'm more inclined to buy that than just like a regular old CD. And I think that's kind of nice, because for people like me who do like to buy a physical copy of a thing, usually that physical copy is slightly more special than it might have been, say, 20 years ago. And that's nice.
Absolutely. I remember I lived with this guy, and when he would buy a record, he had this ritual, and he sort of turned me on to his ritual. He would get it, he'd sit in the middle of his couch, he'd put the CD in the stereo, and he would take out the liner notes, the insert, and listen, and he would read every single word. As the song was on, he's reading the lyrics, he's staring at it, and I thought that was so cool, because like that's how it should be. That's how sacred that is, and that really truly respects the time and the heart that went into making that, sonic art. So yeah, that's like a little ritual that I picked up from him, and I still do that to this day.
And on the flip side of that too, in popular music, when you have a song, and this is just the opinions of me, not everyone, but when you have a song where the lyrics are "Who Run the World, Girls" over and over again, you don't need to do that.
Right.
You know? So, I mean, I think therein lies where if times have changed, things have changed a little bit. I still find myself, if there's an album I really like, or any album I buy, I always look at the booklet. I'm always interested in who's thanked and who wrote the lyrics, and if there's any special guests. But perhaps that's just me.
So we got another pre-recorded comment sent in by Mike Garrigan. Mike Garrigan is a guitarist, vocalist out of Raleigh, North Carolina, or Greensboro more specifically. He actually played with a band called Athenaeum, who had some Billboard chart success, and a band Collapsis, who had a song Automatic that also placed on the Billboard Modern Rock charts. But he had a lot to say about this, and we're going to listen to his comments now.
I remember the first single I got was Journey's Separate Ways, Worlds Apart, and it was cool. It was a 45, and I remember flipping it over, and there was the song Frontiers, and I remember Frontiers being also included on the LP of the same name, but that was the first time I really ever thought about the B-side, and its relationship to the A-side in that case was that, hey, it was an album cut, and this was the single. And as time went on, I didn't really notice much about the interaction between a B-side and A-side. I knew that sometimes they were complementary songs that were on an LP. Sometimes they were exclusive or unreleased tracks. The time, though, that I really noticed the B-side being something interesting was in the days of the cassette single. Remember when Prince's Bat Dance single came out? I think it was in 1990. Bat Dance was a big song, and the B-side, if I recall correctly, was a song called 200 Balloons. And if you knew the song 200 Balloons and listened to it carefully, you could see that it was the backbone, basically the foundation of the song that became Bat Dance. And Bat Dance essentially was a long remix of the entire Batman soundtrack that Prince put together. It's a very good record. Bat Dance is sort of like a strange afterthought, and it happened to be the single. So in that way, the B-side sort of gave us insight into what really inspired the A-side. One of my favorite singles was a Hall & Oates single for the song So Close, Yet So Far Away. I think that was the title. The A-side was a studio cut, like the single, the slick, awesome production. I think Bon Jovi produced that, incidentally. But the B-side was an acoustic version, and I tended to like that acoustic version a little better for some reason. It just seemed more tender. Fast forward into the 90s, early 90s, mid-90s, late 90s, I used to see B-sides take the form of like extended EPs. And a good example, I remember when the second Pearl Jam record came out, there was a Go single that had two B-sides, and one was an acoustic version of a song on the record, Elderly Woman, and one was a unreleased track, a song called Alone, which, in my opinion, is the best version of that particular song, and it just sort of fell away from their B-side catalog for whatever reason. But in that way, it was sort of like an anticipatory, like, okay, the B-side is going to give you a hint of what the rest of the record's like, but it's not going to be the record. My favorite collection of B-side single sort of things is the Airplane Flies High box set. And as I'm talking, I have a couple of the discs out in front of me, and it was this great box set, and it had 5 discs from the 5 singles from the Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness album. And the thing I liked about this collection of singles is that, the A side of the single is the first track, and the other 5 or 6 songs on the collection were B-sides that weren't released on Melancholy, but they sound a lot like the single. In a lot of ways, it seems like these songs that were the B-sides on these collections either inspired the single, in the case of being a cover song, or they were rejected in favor of the single. And like the Tonight single, for example, is a lot of acoustic songs. The 33 single has some songs that are very much like 33, more of the acoustic, mellow pumpkin stuff. And the Zero single, which is my favorite of the bunch, has got a lot of heavy songs that are very much in the vein of Zero. And 1979 and Bullet with Butterfly Wings are very similar to those three in that respect, that the B-sides complement the single. But nowadays, I think I fall into that camp of missing the B-side. But the one thing I do like about the digital realm and the MP3 reality that we're in now is that when artists release deluxe packages, let's say, for example, both the Nirvana reissues of Nevermind and In Utero, those are full of all of the B-sides that, pretty much all the B-sides that were in existence, and they're remastered and they're placed right next to the original album in a way that it's just sort of a complete collection. And that way, the physical aspect and the nostalgia in that physical sense is not there, but you can still get the music. So I think we gain more access to songs now, but you don't get the big box and you don't get to flip the song over and really think about what it means. And incidentally, I think that's why, one of the reasons why we have a resurgence of vinyl in the past 5 to 10 years is that although we like the portability of MP3 and streaming, there's nothing like a big old record to put on and look at and listen to.
I met an Yngwie Malmsteen person, and once you get the hang of his name, he's really incredible. I really did. I bought his album the other day, and I threw my guitar out. I said, why bother? Why bother? Use it as a coffee table, because I can't play the thing like that. He's great. I like the way he puts Yngwie J. Malmsteen on his album, so you don't confuse him with all the other Yngwie Malmsteens in the business.
Hey, what's up? This is Zach from American Authors. Speaking of music, you're listening to it.
So I'm going to ask Lucas what he thinks about this first, but before I hand it over, one thing that I wanted to touch on is that when you have a cassette or a record, when you flip it, you're looking at the track listing and the song titles at least once, assuming you listen to the whole thing, or if you're taking it out of its sleeve to know which side you want or which side of the cassette you want to put in, you're looking and you're making a visual imprint, storing that information in your brain. So when you're in conversation at a bar or at the arcade, or buying specialty magnets for some Chinese person that lent you a skateboard 2 weeks ago, you're more likely to be able to retain that information and reference it. And whereas now I find myself often saying, oh man, that new Foo Fighters is pretty badass. Like, I don't know what song it is. I think it's track 3.
Oh, totally.
It starts out with the bass, and I'll be at a party or a bar or wherever, and you'll hear someone else talk about it. It's like, yeah, the new Tool, man. It's like, I'm glad that they took so long to put it out because it's killer. I don't know what song it is, but I think it's like the second song on the album. Because, sure, when you look for a particular song and you hit play on your iPhone or whatever device you use, you do see the song title then. But if you're like guys like us who are eclectic music listeners, you're often just hitting shuffle or play, putting it in your pocket or in your car. And if you don't have the benefit of like the LED readout, the songs are just playing continuously. And you don't have that ID, that refreshing and, that memory trigger that locks it into your long-term memory. So I miss that, and I think that's an important thing, that to actually remember the names of songs and be able to talk about them and not just refer to them as track 2.
Absolutely. It's been some time since I've known the actual name of a song. They just, if you listen to something, and I think that, before even MP3s and everything, when I just listened to CDs in the car, like, I'm driving, I'm not looking at the artwork. So same with lyrics. I don't know I've had albums for 20 years that I don't know the words to because I don't get the opportunity, or it doesn't exist, to study the lyric sheet. Mm-hmm. And that's definitely, it's a bummer. You don't get to immerse yourself quite as fully as you used to. Maybe that also comes with being busier than I used to be. I don't have quite as much time to just like sit in my bedroom and listen to music and dig into it. And a lot of it is because there's really not as much to dig into anymore. But the B-side part, like when I was young, I got to go through my parents' boxes of singles, 7-inch singles. And because I was young, I didn't really understand the concept of the B-side. Like there's 2 sides, so you're going to get 2 songs. But it wasn't until I was in junior high school and I got into The Cure pretty heavy, and they had a phenomenal B-sides collection. And that, it was so much weirder than the stuff that they had, and not that the stuff that they were putting on their records wasn't kind of weird already, but that was when I first really started to figure out, like, okay, this is the concept of a B-side, and it gives you an opportunity to release something that maybe you wouldn't have otherwise. And, as a teenager, 7-inch singles from bands or 7-inch records from bands were cheap and easy. And if you saw a local band, like, chances are good they have a 7-inch. And, as I got older, I really got to dig into the concept of the B-side more. And it is a bummer that it's gone, but as that dude was saying, it does get to show up on special editions and stuff. And I think that's great. And I'm the kind of person who will listen to, like an early demo version of something or an alternate take of something and really dig it. And I also like that some of that stuff is completely exclusive. And, when I get a collection of something, those are songs that I have absolutely never heard before. And, chances are they're just as good, if not better, than the stuff that was released on an album. And I really dig that. And it's sad that's kind of gone.
For the most part, I absolutely agree. Like I said, I come from the era when the transition was made. And just because, music is such a deep passion for me, I've always wanted to buy it. I've always wanted to physically have it. That's not to say that I, haven't downloaded in the past and that I don't use Spotify and iTunes today, because I absolutely do. And I find myself, as Lucas mentioned earlier, you now have access to just infinite amounts of music where you don't have to take the chance of tracking down something that you don't know all that much about and potentially wasting your money on it if you don't like it. You could just gravitate to the one or two songs that you do like, and and I miss the idea of making mix CDs. I used to be kind of known for making people mix CDs of, if someone liked The Cure, a friend of mine liked The Cure, but they didn't know much similar music. Well, I'm gonna make a mix for you, and I'm gonna throw on, some Depeche Mode and some XTC and some Bauhaus or whatever, and give you kind of, a fuller picture of that. And I mean, there's playlists now. You could do some really interesting things with playlists.
Your chances of getting laid with a playlist are way less than they were if you made a carefully crafted mixtape.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, I mean, it's disheartening in that aspect, but, there was mention of the vinyl resurgence, and it's actually very popular right now. A lot of people, even younger than myself, I talked to the guys from Bunder Third, and they're talking about how cool it is that they got the new Foo Fighters record on vinyl, and they're finding this and that on vinyl. And a lot of times, I just bought a vinyl a couple months ago, early T-Rex album, and there's a code in it that you could download the album for free. That way you can have
a convenient
it for
copy.
Yeah. And I think that's really cool because, that album is in your collection, it is in your possession, but you can't translate a big vinyl record to your mobile device if you want to listen to it while you're out on a run.
Right.
So
right.
I see that as we move forward into the future, I see a lot more of that. I see it kind of going back and forth. Those who want the physical album, all of us, we mentioned before, all of us like having the digital media and the access to it, and it's necessary for the types of lives we lead.
Totally.
And it's a lot safer than bringing the album that you cherish so much and putting it in danger of getting destroyed,
Yeah, and I mean, I used to mow the neighbor lady's lawn. She'd give me $7 for mowing her lawn. And a cassette was like $15 or so. So when there was something I really wanted and I knew it was out there, or I knew that a new record was coming out, like I would have to mow the lawn for 2 weeks, and then I would have to ride my bike to the record store at the mall so I could buy this. So, not only did 2 hours of mowing a lawn and a 45-minute bicycle ride there and a 45-minute bicycle ride back just to buy a cassette, that I would get home and excuse me, tear the cellophane off and just, breathe in that smell, and I had busted my ass to get a hold of this. And because of that, it was like a hard-won thing that I had in my hand. And, that's gone now, I guess. First of all, because, I try to make my wife mow the lawn as much as possible. And also, I'm not just scrimping for, to come up with $15 for a record. And I don't have to ride my bike to the mall. So it doesn't feel like I've accomplished quite as much to get a hold of a thing. So maybe it's slightly less special to me for that reason.
Well, we're kind of running out of time, but man, what an awesome episode. Especially, I like this new thing where people can record their thoughts at home and send them in.
Yeah, I want to give those guys high fives.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely encouraged.
And for those people that are digging what we're doing, I mean, put your own thoughts on the Facebook wall, or record your own thoughts and just attach an MP3 to the wall, or you can email your pre-recorded comments at speakingofmusic2015. That's speakingofmusic2015 at gmail.com. And, as long as they're not obscene or ridiculous, we'll try to squeeze them in. But it's been great. We're going to put some songs here at the end of the episode featuring Mike Garrigan and Jimmy Taylor. We thank them for their submissions. And on the next episode, we're going to talk about the music of the 1990s and go through the top albums of that decade and see what happens. But thanks, guys. Thanks, Josh Roman, for recording us here at Mind Rocket Studio. And looking forward to the next episode of Speaking of Music. Peace.
The Speaking of Music show is sponsored by Nursery Podcast and Still Standing Entertainment. Please check out our friends at Supporting Your Local Music, Tonetronics, the Lime Tree Cafe in downtown Warren, Ohio, and the Record Connection.
Reputation for exquisite cuisine, enticing sweet aroma and tasteful and dream. Your selections are delicious and the table's been set. Anticipation has my appetite whet. If you want to be with me, the only thing you must agree, the one thing you must do for me. If you want to be with me, the only thing I'll ever need is just your secret recipe.
This is Mike Garrigan. Speaking of music, you're listening to it right now.
I run into the trees when it's raining. 11 flowers in the breeze. The sky is burning, and it seems to fade away. And it seems to fade. Stand along the edge, the sun is flying. 11 doves upon a ledge.